Oh. Well, morning everybody, and fantastic to see you all again. As you can see, I'm in Glencoe, and this is an area that I've not really explored very much. So I've just arrived, and I thought in the sort of 2.5, 3 hours that I've got, I'm going to hike down to a river here and try and get this amazing mountain in the background in the shot. And the thing that I thought would be really interesting to talk about whilst I'm doing this is, recently, in the last year, I've switched from using Aperture priority as my default to manual priority. And I want to talk about why I did that, and some of the things that I think that people talk about that I don't think are true in terms of settings and, you know, what profiles you use and all sorts of things like that. And we can talk a little bit more about when you might use Aperture priority, when you might use full manual, and hopefully I'll get some amazing shots. So let's head on down here and see what I can get. Okay, I've got a bit further down now, and I thought I'd got out of the wind, but there's still quite a lot of wind just blowing up the valley, really. So there's a lot of water in the waterfall, which is fantastic. You sort of expect that in January. And I think what I want to do is head down and see if I can get a little bit lower to get some of this waterfall in below here. And then I can shoot back up to these amazing, what's called the Three Sisters in the background here. Probably only get 2 of them actually, but I think it'll be pretty good. The silver birch on the hill look amazing as well. Everything just looks so much more vibrant when it's wet like this. Right, let's go and have a look down there. Okay, slight flaw in this plan is that we are on the wrong side of the main river and there doesn't seem to be a bridge. What I want to be is over the other side of this river down here, where there's sort of a V, so I can shoot back towards the main river and where the intersection of the 3 rivers are. And then that will allow me to get a better composition up to the mountains. So the plan is that we walk a little bit further this way, see if there's a way of getting across. I'm not sure there's going to be. Tricky. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we managed to get a little bit further around. We've not managed to get over the river here, but there's a really nice S-bend now that sort of leads you through to the Three Sisters in the background. So it's now just a question of just trying to find a composition. Just a little thing before, I'm going to talk a little bit more on manual and Aperture priority, but I'd like to say first of all that there is no wrong. So all this is just how you come about the ultimate settings that you shoot. And it basically comes down to depth of field and exposure. So I'll talk a little bit more about it when I've set up my shot, but at the moment I'm just hand holding, which I always do. I've just got my phone out quickly. I'm now hand holding. I'm just trying to find a composition. You can see that it's looking quite good. I've got to decide whether I get these trees in here or whether I want more of this waterfall here. This is at 14 millimeters, so it's definitely a wide angle scene. This is so epic, and the conditions are really, really dramatic as well. Okay, so I quickly want to say about Aperture and manual priority in a little bit more depth. So I used to shoot Aperture priority, and that's fine. You set the aperture and then your camera will set the exposure based on the metering system of your camera. But really, with modern cameras, you've got a histogram, and that histogram tells you whether your photo is exposed correctly or not. So I find it better now to move to manual controls, because then you're in control of the aperture and the shutter speed. You make those decisions. With aperture priority, you just don't know whether the shutter speed has changed. So in a situation like this where I'm shooting water, I have a specific shutter speed that I want to achieve and a specific aperture that I want to achieve. So I need to control the light coming into the camera through a polarizer, through an ND filter, through ISO. And I find it then much better to shoot in manual control. Okay, so I have got my 14 to 24mm lens here. I've got it on manual, and basically what I'm doing is I'm controlling the aperture and the shutter speed. Before I do that, I'm going to just talk you through the composition. Obviously there's a lot of rain, so I'm just wiping my polarizing filter. I basically got the water coming in through here, and then this tree here, this mountain here, and then the water sort of takes your eye through to the mountain. I played about with this bit of rock being a little bit more in the frame, but it didn't really work very well, so I think this is probably the best. And yeah, it works so easy. I mean, it's just so amazing here. So in terms of the shutter speed, I want around about 1/3 of a second for the water. I've played about with shutter speeds, and I feel like that's going to give the best flow to the water. So I know I want 1/3 of a second. I need, probably for depth of field, I need anything above f8 really. So f8, f10, f11. I don't want to go above f13. I've got a polarizer on, and the polarizer is just to polarize the light a little bit on the water. I'm not using it a lot, but I'm also using it to reduce the exposure coming into the camera, because I want to try and shoot at ISO 14 as well. So then the only thing I'm moving is really the aperture. But because I'm in manual, it just gives me control over all those things. I could put it in aperture priority and then just use the exposure compensation, but I feel that that's not allowing me to control the scene and allowing my camera to control it. And I feel like for me now, in my new thing, so I used aperture priority for 30 years, I feel that this works a little bit better. But there's nothing wrong with using aperture priority, but for those reasons, I feel it's a little bit better. And then it's a question of just making sure this is clean. It's got hydrophobic coating. These case filters are amazing. And that hydrophobic coating means that I can clean it really easily without fear of smearing. And I'm just clearing it, taking the shot, and then I'm just doing a bit of an exposure bracket as well, making sure, really important, that I clean the filter between them, because there's so much water going on it. I really hope this works. Okay, you can probably see behind me, but the conditions now have just got really bad. So we've not got much light. How much we got? We've got about 10 minutes of light left. It's really dark. I've got a shot, I think. So what we'll do is we'll head back to the lodge and we can chat a little bit more about the photos I just took and manual aperture priority and also shutter speed as well. Oh, I love Glencoe, it's so amazing, but I'll be glad to get everything dry. So, as you can see, I'm at home now. When we went back to the lodge, we were super tired, and actually I wanted to show you the printed image of this because I realised it's going to be a really good image. So I'm going to get onto that in a minute. I want to say, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, and also please share it. That really makes a big difference to the YouTube algorithm. Last week's video did really, really well because everybody shared it, and if you can do that again, if you like it, then that would be really fantastic. Okay, on to this week's sponsor, who is NordVPN/Nigel, and it's a product that I've used for the last year, and I don't know why I've not used it for longer than that. As a landscape photographer, I travel a lot, and one of the things that's really important to me is protecting my data. I want to make sure that when I log on to various things, whether that's my bank account or social media, or I'm posting things, that nobody else can see it. And if you're connected to a hotel or an airport Wi-Fi, then your internet connection isn't safe. So with NordVPN, you can quickly connect through a VPN, and that means that everything's encrypted. Nobody can get your data. And for me, that's really, really, really important. One of the things that stopped me going for a VPN was speed. I was worried about how fast it was going to be. But NordVPN is super fast. It doesn't slow your internet connection down, and you don't even know it's there, to be honest. You just have peace of mind. And the other thing is, I can look at the BBC website as if I'm in the UK, which is fantastic for me because I like reading the news, and the UK news, not the international news. And there's a fantastic offer. If you go to NordVPN/Nigel, then there's a great 2-year discounted offer, and also you get 1 month free. So go and take a look at it. Thanks NordVPN for sponsoring this week's video. Okay, onto this amazing print. We were really lucky because the stream was really full, the snow had melted, the snow we'd come to see had melted, but that meant that we got this shot because usually it's about 60, 70 centimeters down on this. And when we came back a few days later, you can see here that the water was so much lower. But anyway, this has worked out pretty well. What I really love about it is the flow in the water here, and that is achieved by having the right shutter speed. And just a small difference in your shutter speed can make a big difference to the flow of water, so it's something you've got to try. And I find now, I always used aperture priority and just did exposure compensation to change things. But if the lighting change, you just don't have control over it completely. With manual priority, what I find is that you're looking at that histogram, and you're deciding where that histogram needs to sit. And you can think, okay, I can blow out the highlights a little bit there, I'm not going to blow out the highlights. Rather than the camera looking at that histogram, which is what it does effectively, and it decides what the perfect exposure is. And I just feel like taking back on that control is so, so important. So give it a go. Go and just switch your camera to manual, and you'll probably have 2 dials where you can change one for shutter speed, one for aperture, and you can just look at your histogram. I've got to admit, it works a lot better when you've got live view or you've got a mirrorless camera where you can see the histogram through your viewfinder. And yeah, I feel like it's improved my photography because I've got more control. Okay, that's it for this week's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly really enjoyed getting this photo. Thanks ever so much for watching. Until next Sunday, bye.